There are a lot of things going on in this world with which you are interacting, and things that are of a physical nature are doing what they do, because everything that is physical has resistance. If there were not resistance, you couldn't even harness electricity. The thing that makes you able to use your electricity is that you are able to put some resistance on it so that you can utilize it and measure how much of it you are letting through. Yes? And so resistance is part of the balance of physicality. It's a good thing, it's not a bad thing. So understanding that there is resistance in all things, and then learning from your own ability to decipher it, what it means, and then noting the relationship, that's really what we're teaching here. But instead of teaching you to listen for your compressor on your refrigerator, or listen for the compressor on the pressure washer, we're asking you to listen to your emotions, which are a much more subtle reading of energies. And if you are always releasing your own resistance whenever you feel it, the pressure washer in you will never blow up if you're tending to it on a sort of moment by moment basis. What happens with humans, that's you all, is that you do want justification, meaning evidence that others can see, to justify things that you are doing. And that holds you way back. It slows you way down. If you could just acknowledge that I feel things out ahead of time that most don't feel, and in the same way that I feel it with things like that, I can feel it with emotions too, which means I can do something about maintaining my balance before it gets to the point that the balance cannot be maintained. Yes?
Yes. Leading me to my last question. That was great. So I meet my new friend in the parking lot who's been studying you for years. So last Sunday, I got this energy to go to Tesla and test drive, because it's one of my to-do lists and my goal list. And I'm like, I'm just gonna go and I'm gonna test drive. So I go there and I meet the manager, who's a super guy, and he's talking. He was like, what brings you here? I said, oh, my energy just told me to come. So I get there, and he's like, oh, good, because I believe in energy, and I'm back and forth. We had a nice conversation. I was like, oh, have you ever heard of Abraham Hicks? He was like, no, I never heard of her. And I was like, oh, well, let me tell you about her and YouTube her. So by the time I did my test drive and came back, he was like, oh my gosh, she's awesome. He was like all over her. I swear that's the reason why I'm sitting in this chair right now, because I introduced him. I followed my energy, introduced him to the teaching, and it manifests back to me sitting here. That's possible?
Well, the reason that you're sitting here is because you have strong desires, and you're in a very good proximity of those desires manifesting. You are in this invincible place where you can be or do or have anything that you choose. And so what we want you to hear is that it is only the limits that you place. What you choose can be as big as you can believe it to be. But this is what we mean by identifying and isolating emotions and then noticing the results of them. So you're doing exactly what we're talking about doing. You're not just sitting somewhere in the audience and watching someone who seems to have a strong conviction and then walking around and trying to mimic some of the things that you've heard. Instead, you are feeling the resonance of it and identifying that resonance within you and focusing on it until it becomes stronger, and then following the impulse of that, and in following the impulse of it, then feeling the growth or expansion of it, and then understanding through that personal experience that you do create your own reality. You do create your own reality. The thing that we want to really pile on top of that is, while you are creating your own reality, you have resources that would blow your mind of non-physical energies that are in on you creating your own reality. You underestimate the power of your desire and the power of your backup system and the power of the non-physical energies who are focused here with you now. And so this conversation is just because you have been asking for this little nudge that you want, and some would say need, we would say want. Get out ahead of it and dream bigger and watch what happens. There are no limits, and you are on the brink of giving up your limitations. Esther has a really dear friend that she met years ago, and her friend and her boyfriend purchased a many hundreds of acre ranch in Colorado. It was actually a lodge and cabins, hundreds of acres of cross-country skiers, and it was surrounded on 3 sides by the national forest. And one night Esther and her friend are sitting in front of a fireplace, and Esther is enjoying what she's feeling from her friend, because her friend feels different than last time Esther talked with her. Esther's actually thinking, what's this new thing I'm feeling from you? And her friend looked up and she said, you know, what's the best thing about this place? There are so many things to be afraid of out here that I had to give most of them up. And Esther thought, that's what I'm seeing. She just didn't have time to keep all of her fears activated, because there were just so many of them that it just became sort of ridiculous. And that's what's happening globally to all of you. There is so much contrast that is going on that you're reaching this sort of culmination place where you are no longer willing to sweat all of the small stuff, because there's just too much small stuff to sweat. And it's occupying too large of a percentage of your attention, and therefore muting the sun that shines on you all of the time. And so that's sort of the other end of this stick that you are on. In other words, you've already broken out into the daylight, and now you are just exploring it, but you're not quite sure that what you're seeing is real, or is forever, or is steady. And we want to tell you it is. You'll never go back.